saw a Robinson truck pull around, so.
He didn't say he was not coming.
You got 30 seconds.
You got, yeah, I was gonna say, you got 30 seconds, Dan.
Take a deep breath, you're right on time. Right on time. my friend. You can't get anywhere in this town anymore.
No, you can't.
Wow, it is bad.
I can't even hardly cross the street to get my mail anymore at the office.
Yeah, yeah. I'm good from Webster.
Yeah,
Nobody-
I walked off and left it right on my desk.
Have they started on 15 yet? Have they started anything on 15 yet? Any of the repaving work?
I don't think so.
I don't know, but there's somebody's been out there doing some saw cutting
Yeah.
up in the area of Village Mark.
Yeah, that's all they've been doing.
I thought, I knew they were going to start working on that this week, so I thought, oh, I'll come in Old 30. I mean, and then on New 30, and then that was backed up out on 30.
Yeah.
I couldn't get here that way. I tried to Claypool to get here. That happened last year for a while. We had so many different streets, but in order for me to drive that way, I drove up that way.
Really?
I tried that way, and then drove up to Ivy Cat on the way road at it and around. Yeah, there's no way I get anywhere.
There's no rhyme or reason.
Don't forget to turn your mics on.
I like it when they put the road closed sign on the road, it's closed. So you turn onto the road so you know it's closed.
It's such a stupid thing to do.
It's like, can you not put it in turn lanes so people know?
Yeah.
Yep.
That annoys me too,
Duh,
now that you're trapped.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Aviation Commissioners for the City of Warsaw for the month of July to order. I'm glad to see you all here, survived the 4th of July all right. You should have either hard copy or electronic copies, a set of documents. The first one including the minutes from the June 11, 2019 meeting for your review and hopefully approval.
I move we approve the minutes as written. I'll do a second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Next, claims. What do you have particularly of interest for us? I see one large one that you have particularly interest for us that I'm sure you'll want to explain.
The Morse Kubota,
Yes.
that was the 2 lawnmowers that you guys approved to purchase a couple months ago.
Right.
We did finally take delivery of the second lawnmower. That Tuesday that you guys approved it, they back ordered that lawnmower almost 9 weeks. So we just received it a couple weeks ago and we don't send out payment until we receive the product. And so now that we've got it, they're working, they're doing a great job, and we were able to finally process the payment and get that check over to them, so.
You've been out on it already, have you?
What's that?
You've been out on it already?
Not,
Either of them?
I was out on the big one, not on the
Okay.
72-inch, but
And they're diesel.
they're
right?
both diesel, yep.
Now, do we use our jet fuel diesel? No, we
No.
can't use that.
So jet fuel is diesel, but they have taken all the lubrications and detergents out of jet fuel, and it is a very dry fuel. If you run it through a diesel engine, it can actually, it almost looks like you sandblast the inside of the pistons or the lifters. And so you can use it to clean carbon out of a diesel, but you'd only want to put a couple ounces per 10 gallons in, because it'll really,
Really work. it.
yeah. So we have a diesel tank for one of our snow plows, and one of our big tractor, the Batwing tractor, also is a
Above
diesel.
ground.
Yep, we've
Okay.
got a 500-gallon diesel tank and then a 500-gallon gas tank.
Okay.
Besides that,
Unleaded.
probably costs more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so. Outside
It's
of
not
that,
gonna eat up all our savings, is it?
hopefully not,
Yeah, okay.
hopefully not. Outside of that, the other two, Filtration Corporation of America, we were able to finally, we were having issues with our Prist injector. Prist is the fuel additive in jet fuel that prevents it from gelling, and we were having an issue with the injector on that. We were finally able to finish repairing that and getting those parts in, so that claim is for $397.63. And then we had one load of Jet A for Ascent Aviation for $34,549.97. Other than that, unless you guys have specific questions,
Are those 5,000 gallon loads?
they're about 8.
8?
Is that right, Linda? It's 8 to 85?
Yeah,
It depends on,
7,500 usually in the summer.
yeah, it depends on the temperature of the day, and because it's by volume. So when we pump it into the system, we know how many gallons that day are going in, because the tanks fluctuate depending on the temperature a little bit.
Any further questions about the claims?
I move we accept the claims, especially the $34,549.97 for Accent Aviation Group and $397.63 for the Filtration Corporation of America.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the claims. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carried. Next, Ken, talk to us. Tell us good thing.
The ball is 100% in the FAA's court.
They keep kicking it out of their court.
What-
That's the problem.
They keep asking for little minutia things all the time. We got 2 or 3 requests this week that were kind of silly. I'll get back to the grant funding and status in a little bit. Runway 1836, of course, we've kind of put on the back burner because it's not getting funded until next year, and it's not fair to contractors to get bids and reveal everybody's number only to get postponed a year later. So we're not doing anything with 1836 until this fall. On the runway and the power line program, the FAA asked us to provide a schedule showing all the milestones and deliverables of all the stuff to remain so that they could track that a little bit better. I'm assuming that this is a result of some inquiries that they have received, and they want to be able to track this. So I gave you a copy of the schedule attached to the engineer's report, and hopefully everybody saw the preliminary draft that I sent out earlier today. But we clearly showed this was broken up into 2 projects, the lower the power lines being one project, and to recover the displaced threshold in the other. And I also attached some emails to show some documentation of some of the deliverables and things that we've had, and then some of the timeframes that it has taken the FAA to start the airspace. On the power lines, if you might recall, we originally sent the original submittal for the power lines back in November. They weren't comfortable with the verbiage AEP had drafted up, but they may have to tweak. So they asked for the tweaks to be done. We got those tweaks done. We submitted that on March 28th. Gary Wilson was on temporary assignment somewhere out west, so we sent it again to Mike Brown, who was supposed to be filling in for Gary on April 10th. And the FAA actually uploaded it to the airspace group on May 28th. On July 5th, Gary asked us, or texted me and asked me to call him, so I was in an area with bad cell phone service, but I did get a landline and called him. And he said that 2 of his lines of business was treating, the FAA has 6 lines of business. Whenever we say airspace something, they send it out to all 6 of the different branches, and then they all provide comments, and then the Chicago ADO takes those answers and combines them and then does a determination letter. 2 of the lines of business, which are the most important ones that deal with the flight clearances and the approaches and things, they wanted, instead of this to be treated like a planning document, which normally a planning document, you give them one drawing, it says that it's for planning with the elevations, and they airspace those elevations. They said that they wanted Gary to refile it with an individual airspace case for each one of those structures, and that they also wanted to know the ground elevation and the height of the structures. You do that during construction, when you're ready to go to construction. But they were asking for that now. Gary agreed with us. He called Nick and told him the same thing. And Nick questioned him as well too. And he said that he agrees that normally we don't do that for planning, but he just wanted to give them what they asked for so that there would be no more. He'd rather spend the time doing rather than arguing. So we immediately got that information to him on Monday. He called back this morning and said, well, I need all this on one document from the pen and ink and stuff. I got that to him at 11:30 today. So at least the airspace on the power lines is still ongoing. He's hoping to have that finished up. That's the only item that's really, I would consider still outstanding or incomplete, but the ball is entirely theirs. And they obviously didn't meet the May 26th date because they didn't even start the airspace until May 28th. And I don't know why they couldn't have just slid the new information in and replaced the old information as kind of an amendment, but instead he deleted the old airspace and started a whole new one all over again. So,
It's a method of stalling.
He told me that it would be done in a couple weeks. So when I spoke to him on the phone this afternoon, that airspacing would be done in the next few weeks. He didn't give a hard deadline, but he said, it is submitted, and he said the ball is in our court, we just need to get it done and back to you.
Okay, I want to make sure before our next airport meeting that you've had a discussion with him on that subject specifically, meaning that if you haven't heard from him by the day of the meeting, you call him. Tell him we got an angry board president that really wants to hear back.
Oh, he was made aware that the board was not gonna be happy that this happened, so,
Has he seen me yet then?
no.
Oh, there you go.
So what does this mean, what they do
Well,
the airspace? What does it
if
mean?
they're not gonna fund it until 2021, then it's not hurting anything. But it'd be nice to get it done because we can't even argue or compete for funding this year or next year without it, yeah. And that was our goal. We wanted it done this year so we could get funded this year.
Yeah. The experience with them appears to be that I want to make sure they've got something done 3 months before we need it, because they can't seem to get it done if we wait until the week we need it.
Right.
And then they do it 2 months afterwards,
Yep.
which is what they did from here. They, get sent up to them in March or beginning of April, they don't do anything with it until the end of May.
Well, when we first inquired about the status of it in April, Delora got involved and says, oh no, this isn't good enough. You need to change this drawing. We need multiple drawings. And we said, well, wait a minute. Now, we've already done this with Gary, and Gary already started the airspace. So we just bypassed Delora and went straight to Mike Brown and had a conversation with him. He said, okay, now I get it. I understand. Yes, I'll take care of it. But apparently he didn't. It looks like he just waited until Gary got back from his temporary assignment and let Gary do it. So I can't tell who did the upload in the OE AAA, but I can document when they did it. That's all I can do.
Right.
So, next item then is on the airport layout plan. The airport layout plan was delivered to them on June 28th. It's the final ALP draft that has the revisions that we talked about with slipping the runway a little bit to the east. They were given electronic copies on June 28th, and then we also overnighted a hard copy because Gary wanted a paper copy to review and mark up. It was delivered up there on July 1st, which was Monday. It sat in the mailroom for 5 days, and then it was delivered to his desk on July 5th when he was off on vacation. So I asked him today, how is this going to play with the schedule? Because we had given him 2 weeks to review it and make any requests for any final edits, and he said that he would do everything he could to have any comments to us if needed by Friday, but he couldn't promise anything until he reviewed his workload. But he did then also call on Tuesday, I think he called you too, Nick, on July 2nd, that he asked if we could go ahead and close the grant, make the final draw on that ALP grant, which is 6 years old, I think it is. It's a 2013 grant.
Yep.
And he says he feels like it's far enough along, and as long as we all agree that we'll make any of the final revisions, which that's pretty common. Sometimes they ask for revisions before they airspace it. Sometimes they wait till the airspace is done, and then they say tweak this, and then we'll give you your final determination. But he did ask us to submit that, and I put a copy of that email. I asked him to put that in writing because I wanted the board to see that it was at his request that we make the final payment and the final draw on that. So that one too is also in their court. That's the document that's important for the recovering the displaced threshold, which they say they're not gonna fund till 2022. So, but again, if we're going to try to get this accelerated with our representatives and everything, getting it done is in our best interest. So,
That pay request is, do you have the details?
yeah, well, I was gonna go over that now, if there was
Go ahead.
no questions on the airport layout plan. So this would be the 7th and final pay request for AIP 12. The entire project was $160,000, there's 20% remaining. There's an invoice here for $32,000, of which the FAA will pay 90%, or $28,800. The state, this was an older grant that was only 2.5% of state funds for $800, and then the local funds, your share is $2,400. And so we're asking the board to approve, to allow Jay to authorize the president to execute the final pay request and sign the grant closeout documents.
Before we spend any money, I just want to make sure I've got a good handle on where we are in terms of our two big capital projects. Is it fair to say that for the runway we have for next year, we have a confident commitment for that money?
Yes, that one should
Yeah.
contain very nicely.
And that as far as power lines, as we get to 21 and 22, we have a reasonable belief without having a confident commitment yet?
Yes. I mean, they're not gonna make any promises beyond the current, they'll tell everybody this, I can't promise you anything beyond September 30th.
Yeah.
But as long as we get funded properly by Congress and everything, we have every intentions of putting you on the discretionary candidate list. for
All
those
this,
years.
all this being, you know, absent, assuming government doesn't shut down, and I remember a time when that used to be an idle threat. But assuming government doesn't shut down, we don't have some dramatic budget impasse or budget change that.
Well, there's two things that Congress has to vote on for this funding. The first one is authorization, and then the second one's appropriation.
Yep.
And we've already got authorization. They did a multi-year authorization, kind of like when they first did the reauthorization act for like 4 or 5 years. But they still have to do the appropriations annually, and that's when they've been doing the continuing resolutions and stuff. So, you know, as long as they appropriate the full 3.2 billion, you're good to go.
They have to tell you you can spend the money, and then they have to give you the money to spend.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, they call it, we're waiting for our checkbook to be charged, is what they say. So,
Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk about that before we dealt with the pay requests. So.
yes.
You ready? Yeah.
Okay. I move we authorize the pay request for NGC for the amount of $32,000. Also, I move that we allow Jay to sign whatever documents he needs to make that happen.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. I'll stay around and sign that stuff afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, if the board is interested, I looked since our last pay request, but in like February of 2018, we've actually spent over $100,000. So you're getting 3-to-1 return on your money, so, with no requests for extras. And I still have to finish up an environmental too.
Don't bring that up tonight.
Okay. Anything else for Ken? Anything else from Ken?
No, I'm done, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Like I say, I'll sign that stuff after we get done with the
Yeah, that's
meeting, so. Nick, you're up.
All right, we will start with the fuel usage report. June was still really down because those jets were still down for maintenance. But revenue was actually up just a little bit since the board did it with that pricing adjustment a few months ago. Right now, my guess, look, now that we're halfway through the year, depending, things could pick up, I'm not sure, but on our forecast based on fuel sales currently this year, I think we'll wind up about 70 to 80,000 gallons down. It could be upwards of 100,000 depending on how the fuel sales do towards the end of the year. Specifically with the economy slowing down right now, we are not alone in this. Lots of airports around us are also slowing down in fuel sales. So it was very good that we were able to get that price adjustment made because our revenues are staying fairly flat with, even though the decrease in fuel sales has happened. I have spoken with customers. We've heard a couple things where people have noticed that the price has gone up, but we haven't heard anything super negative yet. And they understand that for us to be able to make the improvements at the airport, from taxiway pavement, runway pavement, lighting, that we need to have money to be able to do that. And so we haven't heard too many negative things on that yet, so.
Well, I mean, the year-to-date revenue, the usage report kind of shows it's just, you can identify two.
Yeah.
And one of them had a plane out for a while, right?
Yep. Yeah, Zimmer Biomet, both of their jets were actually down for maintenance. One of them was down for almost 14 weeks. It's actually still down. The other one is back and flying. And then Tree of Life, their jet has actually been down for maintenance, and we just found out today that they are selling that jet, and they are currently looking for another one. So it's just, it's a rough time for us right now, but it's definitely picked up in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and we'll see things continue here over the next couple months, so.
And I can confirm it's been down all over the state, and the other reports, it's when it rains every 36 hours and thunderstorms and torrential rains, it's kind of hard to fly sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, tell me.
Unless I have specific questions on that or the income statement, I would like to present my 2020 budget to the board tonight and see what you guys think of that.
Where are we on the door?
The door, the Zimmer Biomet door.
Yeah, that's the only door I ever
Yeah,
ask about.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we have worked with a few different companies. I'm still waiting for answers from a couple back, and I was actually going to reach out to Dan later this week and just see if he had any other ideas of companies we can call. Most of the door companies we've spoken with, we're looking at about $500,000 for the door, and then whatever the installation cost would be for that. So I'm hoping we can find a more economical alternative, and I'm starting to look into bifold doors as well instead of the rolling doors. But that building, the doors that are in that building right now, companies will not recreate that same setup. They won't come in and put 3 rolling garage doors anymore. They're too complicated, they're unsafe, and nobody wants a liability insurance to be able to install a door that large and that complex. So instead of just swapping out 3 overhead doors with 3 new doors and the equipment to go with that, we're having to do major structural changes at this point, and it's just going to be very expensive. So we're trying to figure out what is the quickest way to do it, and then B, what is the most economical way to do it. And we're still, it just takes a long time to get companies to get, one company, it took them almost 4 weeks to get just the basic engineering of, this is roughly what it would cost us to make the doors, and then you would have to figure out how to install them. So,
Yeah, I'll talk to you offline, but there is a company now that makes a fabric or a nylon, like a.
that was this most recent one.
Oh, okay.
It was, they were guessing between 450 and 475,000.
They're a lot less load and structural.
That's really funny you say that, because my suggestion was gonna be hire 2 guys with a curtain,
Yeah,
and it'll be cheaper than $500,000.
yeah. But,
Okay, well, keep us apprised. I'm
Yep.
very curious as to what we're gonna do to make everybody happy with that situation.
yep, we are still very much in the middle of all of that, trying
Okay.
to get that done.
So I had a question about the income statement too. I mean, right now we're showing 125,000 in the red, half the year through. I mean, what's your comfort level? We're gonna get closer to black.
Not, especially, we were not expecting fuel sales to drop it nearly as much as they have. We knew that it was going to be lower because Zimmer Biomet is now one company instead of two, and so we were expecting somewhat lower fuel loads, but nowhere near what we currently are seeing. I think that a lot of that will change in the next 30 days because the other Zimmer Biomet jet will be back and flying again. The other big thing that we really need to, the board needs to finish looking at is facility fees. We have lots of charter aircraft that come in that are not based at Warsaw, that don't buy gas because we don't have any fees. And the pilots will tell us, we'll pay you a fee, but our dispatch is telling us, don't get fuel here because they can tanker the fuel and then not pay anything to us and then fly back home and get their fuel at their base price
Right.
instead of paying our transient price. You know, that airports reward their customers for being loyal based customers, and so they get the same discounts that we give our based customers at their home airports. And if we don't charge fees to say, hey, you either buy 250 gallons of fuel or it's gonna be a $300 facility fee, they won't bat an eye and just say, we won't pay anything if we don't have to, so.
Okay, so our solution for that is,
Implement facility fees.
okay, and where are we creating a policy for that?
I've got a draft up, I can bring it to the board at the next meeting, or if the board would like, I can meet with Dan and John. They worked, when we did the refueling structure, I showed them that draft and we kind of talked about it.
Okay,
And if you would like, the three of us can sit down and put together something to present to the board next month.
you all, Dan, you and John, you want to take a look at that?
I'm in for it.
Okay,
Okay, I'll set something up.
please do.
So how's our reserves doing?
I don't have that number in front of me, John, I would have to get that to you.
Maybe
Linda, do you have a rough idea off the top of your head, what we have in 206 right now?
350?
No, that's 476.
No, that is
476, our depreciation fund, we have, and I'll go over that in our budget here in a minute, about 360, 370, somewhere in there. I don't know 206 off the top of my
206,
head.
I think it's around 600.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's around 600.
600,000 in our 206, our general operating fund. And I'll go into depth on that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions before Nick gets to the budget portion of this discussion? Okay.
All right. And I apologize, press, I don't have copies for you, as this is just the draft. You guys will get these when we do the official city budgets, so. So as you look over the budget, just to touch on what I was just discussing a minute ago, the airport does have two budgets. 206 is our general operating budget. That is salaries, day-to-day expenditures, everything like that. That is what you were looking at in front of you. I'm proposing that we don't have our budget for 476, which is our depreciation fund, our large projects, is going to be zero next year. And I'll get into why that is here in a minute. But out of 206, outside of just the first entire section is salaries, wages, employee benefits, PERF, FICA, Medicare, all that kind of stuff. We are given those numbers from HR and downtown, and so we just take those numbers and plug them into the budget. And overall, that between all those different line items, it's about a 2.98% increase over where we were last year with everything. The numbers for insurance are pretty good guesses of what that insurance number will be, but we may have a line one cut on that at the beginning of next year once we get those final numbers in. Any questions on personal services before we move on to some of the other? Okay. Section 2 is supplies. There's been a couple changes there. Office supplies, paper, computer supplies, that type of thing. I increased $500 from $2,000 to $2,500. The main reason for that is just the cost of ink, cost of paper has gone up a little bit, and just to adjust for that over the year is what that cost is. Same thing with postage. Operating supplies, fuel, oil, batteries, again, it's gone up, and so we added $5,000 to that budget just to cover the increased cost of fuel and oil for our equipment. Repair and maintenance, and this is for runway maintenance, building maintenance, aircraft support facilities, taxiway lights, that type of thing. I did increase that budget about 5,000, or I increased it 5,000 from 20 to 25,000. Again, runway lights our system is old, and so it's getting harder to find those bulbs, the glass covers and the couplings. And until we can upgrade all of our runway lights, it's just going to increase our maintenance a little bit on those fees. They're just, everybody's switching to LEDs and to newer technologies, and until we install those, it's just gonna cost a little bit more to maintain on a day-to-day basis. So total, we're going from 53,000 to 63,500 in those budgets there. The next section is other services and charges, and we state, that is just about flat. The only increase between, in that whole section is our insurance, and that is the airport's liability and our hangars keepers insurance. And we have not received a firm number, so I just budgeted a 15% increase. And then if there is an increase, we'll make that line one cut or adjustment at the beginning of the year once we receive those final numbers. And then the last section is our capital outlays section, and this is where the biggest changes have taken place. Line 444, which is improvements other than buildings, has gone up substantially. As you guys can see, $125,000 more than last year for a total of $175,000. The main reason for that is that line is what we typically do pavement maintenance, so crack filling, resealing of runways, repainting of runways, building new ramps for hangars that are being built, things like that. We need between $50,000 and $70,000 next year for some pavement maintenance that we need to do on a couple of our taxiways. The other $90,000 that is in that budget is for the reconstruction of runway 1836.
That's our local portion.
Correct. So that entire project is $1.8 million, and then the local portion is $90,000. The state will be matching that $90,000, and so we'll be able to get a whole new runway, north-south runway, and the local portion will only be $90,000.
Now, I'm sure there's a bookkeeping answer to this, but why are we having this in the basic operating budget and taking it out of there as opposed to the same money coming out of the capital budget under 476?
I was just going to touch on that,
Good,
so
good.
great question.
Okay.
I discussed it with the mayor and with the clerk treasurer, and with the FAA telling us that the power lines will happen in 2021, the local share of that project will be between $360,000 and $390,000, depending on how that final cost comes out. And so to leave that money in the depreciation budget for that large project, then it was easier to absorb the $90,000 into our operating budget and save that money for the power lines when they happen here, hopefully in 2 years.
Okay.
So that was a discussion that I had with the mayor and clerk treasurer, and just looking everything over, this was the best way that we could fund that. The second line there is machinery and equipment. This year we had $75,000 in there, and next year we're budgeting $119,500, and part of that is going towards replacing our oldest plow truck. It is a 2002 F-250. We'll be replacing that with a newer, most likely an F-350, similar to the rest of our fleet. That way we have same parts for all of our different trucks. We also have a airport courtesy car that is a 2001 Ford Taurus. We've owned since 2001, and it is getting to the point where it is costing more money to maintain it than it is worth. And so just replacing that with another economy car of some kind, and we'll go shopping for that next spring. And
2006 Ford.
exactly. And so, and then the other big purchase on next year's budget would be a batwing to replace the batwing mower that we have right now. Our batwing mower is about 18 to 20 years old, and again, it's between $2,000 and $3,000 a year to maintain. That's not terrible. What's really rough is it's getting harder and harder to find parts. So we have to special order parts, and then that machine is down for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and we get behind in mowing, and we just need to replace that with a newer piece of equipment. So, other than that, total budget is, in 2019 was $843,116, and for 2020, the new budget would be $1,042,971 for a total change of 23.7%. So if you guys have any specific questions on any of those line items, or any of that, just let me know.
Okay, but essentially, if I'm looking at that, and remember the numbers you
Yeah.
gave, about 80% of that increase is simply because we're taking money out of, well, we're not spending out of depreciation fund.
Correct.
We're spending it here
Yep.
in order to be able to have that money later. So,
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we've increased, line 444 quite a bit to deal with what it states there.
Yep.
Where are we at as far as doing anything with taxiway repair this year?
We are in the middle of working with the street department on that. So interdepartmental cooperation has really gone up the last few years, and instead of us contracting a third party to come out and then pay their labor and pay everything else, we've actually, we're scheduled to get the street department to come out, and they're going to be able to do a lot of the crack repair and the crack filling this year, and it's gonna save the airport a lot of money.
Do we have a
So-
schedule for that?
We're working on that. With vacations over the 4th of July, it's just been pretty crazy the last couple of weeks, but we're hopeful in the next couple of weeks to have a firm schedule in place. And then once we figure out what work they will be doing, we're gonna go through and schedule more crack sealing and then pavement sealing as well on top of that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. What it comes down to is if the street department does the work, then the airport just pays for the material that is actually put in, and a ton of asphalt is what, $80 right now? 80 to 90 bucks? So paying for that instead of paying that plus labor plus machines for a third party to come in, we're just waiting for those final numbers to come in, and then we'll be able to know firm what else we're gonna do on top of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Last thing on the budget was brought to me this afternoon, so I apologize, I don't have anything in writing. Our field airframe and power plant mechanic, Air Care Incorporated, the owner is retiring, and he is looking at, or he looked at selling his hangar to a few other individuals, see if they would be interested in buying the business. That has not happened yet, and his realtor has approached me to see if the airport board would be interested in purchasing that building. We don't know prices. I have in my head roughly what I think it would appraise for, but I don't think that would be fair to say at this time, just because we would need a professional to come in and appraise the building and see where it's sitting. If the airport would decide to purchase it, we could use that space for additional storage space for our equipment, as well as we have to keep claims and so many fuel documents. Right now, they're in the basement of this building. We could house them at the airport instead of bringing them down here. We could also park aircraft inside of the hangar portion overnight. So when aircraft comes in and lands, they want to put their airplane inside a hangar overnight. We could charge, depending on the size of aircraft, anywhere from, let's hear, what, 25 to 50 bucks, depending on the airport. And then up from there, I mean, jets will pay $400, $500, $600 a night, depending on the jet. The large ones, the real big ones won't fit in that aircraft, in that hangar, but the larger ones that will fit are between $400 and $600 a night typically. So it's something that they were curious if the board would have any interest in purchasing this building and then using it as either community hangar space or looking for another tenant to come in instead of it just sitting vacant and then continuing to look for a purchaser themselves. So I
Well, I
told
mean,
them,
that would be my question. I mean, is there an advantage of having that building there so somebody else can come over in that line of work instead of take away the hangar from them and then everybody else can come in?
Well, and that has been the issue is the people who have looked at bringing in another airframe and power plant mechanic shop there. A lot of those mechanics don't have the capital to purchase a building, and they would look at a 5 to 10 year lease or potentially even longer, depending on how the board would want to structure it. So if we bought the building, then we could turn around and lease it as an airport-owned hangar back to an airframe and power plant mechanic shop.
And how much value would that be to our tenants to have that here?
It would be huge, because right now we don't
It's a
have
big
one.
deal.
We-
Yeah.
With him leaving, we won't have one
Yeah.
anymore, and they will have to leave the airport to get work done on their aircraft.
Yeah, but it seems to me we could find, we'll figure out storage space, we got storage space
Right.
issues, but we got a building designed for that. I'd really like to
Keep it that
have it
way.
stay available
Yeah.
for that, don't you think, guys?
Yes,
And
we
truthfully, I mean-
need to seriously look at it.
Yeah.
So it's something that I think we should definitely pursue if the board is interested in that. We would just need to contact some appraisers and start getting values and then figuring out how we would want to structure financing that, whether that would be through a loan or if we would just want to pay for it cash out front, or how we would want to fund that.
So we don't take any votes, but I'd like to tell them to go ahead and look.
We need to pursue it.
Investigate that with the idea, I think generally speaking, of us using it to get somebody else in that line of work as opposed to for other purposes for the airport. So,
It's probably gonna be a whole lot easier to get another A and P,
Yeah.
if they don't have to, because
Buy it.
more than likely, it's gonna be a younger person
Yeah.
that doesn't have capital or even have high borrowing power yet.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
if it goes the way John, it's gonna be very difficult to get somebody.
Okay.
And there are some, and it's something that the airport can consider as well. While it is very rare, there are some airports that actually will hire airframe and power plant mechanics as an airport employee, and then they run the shop, and then you come up with shop hours, with shop rates, whatever the case is, and then they would be an employee for the city at that point, and then it would be folded in underneath the FBO business that we already have in place, selling fuel, selling oil. Again, there's what, maybe 2 or 3 in the state that way?
Well, I was just gonna tell you, at
I know
the July,
Crawford's-
at Crawfordsville, at the
Yeah.
July quarterly, they're going to have an open forum discussion about the pros and cons of
Yeah.
a city-ran FBO. It's had its, I mean, you're basically becoming a business owner
Yep.
then.
Yeah.
You're taking a lot of risks in your insurance and everything, and dealing with employees. I mean, like I said, there's pros and cons, but
There
if
is, yeah.
it's ran well, it could be a plus. The other thing too is if you run the business and they are indeed employees, you can give yourself exclusive rights and not allow any other AMPs to come into your airport. Which, if you just get someone that'll come in here, somebody else can come in and compete with
Yeah.
them or whatever, which that's, depending on the amount of work, may not be good or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
So I would encourage, if you got time, to go to that quarterly meeting and have a lot of discussions with Lori.
Okay, well, we'll look at the building stuff and we'll take a look at it.
We'll go from there.
Okay.
Got it.
Got anything else for us?
I know. Unless
Anything
you
else
guys
from the
do.
board?
No?
I'm just sad to see John retiring
Yeah.
this year. I think he's done an excellent job.
I remember hiring him in from Napanee.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been a mechanic, he's been an airframe and power plant mechanic for 50 years this year,
Yeah.
so.
And he's been here at
There's a
Warsaw
shortage-
for,
There's a shortage of those guys now, right
Yeah,
now, too.
at least
They're
a million.
going,
Believe
they're
that.
disappearing
Yeah.
left and right.
Is there any schooling, any
Uh,
programs?
Ivy Tech has a program actually over in Fort Wayne. I've talked with.
for A&Ps?
For A&Ps, yeah, they partnered with Sweet Aviation, and they've got a very, very good program. The problem right now is the jet engine manufacturers are in such high demand for engine and the power plant mechanics that most of them will finish their power plant portion, they'll never get the airframe portion, and they'll go and they'll make $35 or $40 an hour building jet engines for GE or Raytheon or Grumman or whoever it is, Rolls-Royce, so.
Okay. Well, hearing nothing else, meeting adjourned, next meeting August 13th.
Hey.
Good.
Start signing this stuff.
Okay, cool.
Next
I am.
Thursday evening around 4 o'clock,